Today in Murder Mystery History, April 29th.
April 29th, 1989. Jeff Pelly was a 17-year-old student in Lakeville, Indiana. A few weeks before the prom, Jeff was caught burglarizing a nearby home. His haul included some money and some CDs, something that had fairly recently taken the shine away from cassette tapes, so they were clearly the thing to have in 1989. But for that crime, aside from legal accountability, Jeff was grounded by his dad, Bob. He was not allowed to go to prom, and he would also have to miss the other activities involved with it that weekend, including a trip to Great America Theme Park in Illinois the following day. It is said that Jeff would ultimately be allowed to go to prom, but only if his dad drove him there and back. The next set of events is still debated. April 29th, at approximately 4:35 p.m., friends of Jeff stopped by the Pelly's home to take some classic prom pics. Bob was the reverend of Olive Branch Church in a very small town, so teens stopped by their house to show off the rad outfits. All of those shiny dresses, lead press-on nails, and teased hair doused in Aquanet begged to be photographed. Jeff was wearing a pink shirt and jeans. Maybe he ran out of LA looks and just couldn't get his mullet perfectly coiffed. Regardless, he didn't appear to be going to prom. His friends left just before 5 p.m., probably blasting Bobby Brown's My Prerogative and yelling, "Eat my shorts!" Jeff was next seen at the gas station around 5:20 p.m., fixing something wrong with his Mustang. From there, he drove to his girlfriend's house to change into his funky, fresh white tuxedo. Reverend Bob and Dawn, Jeff's stepmom, had a plan to get together with friends at 5:30 p.m. When the reliable couple didn't show up, a friend drove by their house. Both of their cars were in the driveway. The house was dark, and all of the curtains were drawn. It was very unusual for them. Apparently, people knew they could just walk into the Pelly home, at least that evening, because it was noted that at 5:30 p.m. the doors were locked. At 9:30 the next morning, Reverend Bob didn't show up to church services, and none of his family was there. So Bob and Dawn hadn't shown up to the friend's house the night before, and now they were conspicuously absent again. The Pelly family lived next door in a church-owned home, so some members walked over to make sure everything was okay. When no one answered the door, one parishioner used a master key to open the door. Upon entering, he first found Bob's glasses on the shag carpet. He continued walking and found Reverend Bob lying in blood.
I went over to the phone. I called 911. The kids was at the foot of the stairway just a ways down the stairway, and I didn't go all the way down. I went about 2 or 3 steps. That was enough for me. It was a bloody mess.
Reverend Bob had been shot twice with a shotgun at close range. Dawn and 2 of her daughters, Janelle, who was 8, and Jolene, who was only 6, were down in the basement. In death, Dawn was still clutching her young girls. Clearly, they knew what was about to happen when their lives were stolen. Jeff, his sister, and stepsister were not home at the time, so they not only had to be found to make sure they were safe, they also needed to provide an alibi. At least the older kids did. Jeff's sister Jackie was 14 and out of town. His stepsister was only 9 and had been at a sleepover. Jeff was 17 and enjoying his prom weekend. Police went to the Great America Theme Park near Chicago, about 2.5 hours away, to track down Jeff. They brought him back to Lakeville, Indiana, and interviewed him with his grandparents. A detective described that Jeff
Slumped down in his chair, lowered his head, covered his eyes, and asked whether he would get the electric chair.
The Pelly home showed no signs of forced entry, and there was no evidence of a burglary. The only thing missing was the shotgun, which had been on a wall-mounted rack. Based upon the locked house, investigators presumed that someone from the inside of the home was to blame. But there was virtually no evidence connecting Jeff to the crimes. Police found his pink shirt and jeans in the washing machine, and that's about it. But Jeff was the only one who made sense. His girlfriend said that he showed up late to her house after being shocked that he was able to go to prom at all. Jeff told her that at the last minute, his dad relented and was allowing him to do prom weekend. However, everyone investigators spoke with said that Reverend Bob was resolute in his decision that Jeff was absolutely not able to drive to prom, and that he definitely was grounded for his recent burglary. Bob told a friend of his that he had removed something from Jeff's Mustang to ensure that he couldn't drive that night. Those who were with Jeff on Saturday and Sunday said he acted normally. His girlfriend did say that he started acting weird Sunday morning. She said that around 11 a.m., he told me he had a strange feeling something bad happened at home. There was simply very little in the way of answers or evidence. Though the crimes took place April 29, 1989, no one was charged for them, not until 2002. Jeff was living in Florida, married, with a child, when he was arrested for the 4 murders. His case went to trial in 2006, 17 years after the 17-year-old was said to have murdered his father, stepmom, and 2 stepsisters. The prosecution's case was built on circumstantial evidence. Essentially, it was most logical that it was Jeff's doing. They put forth the theory that he was angry that his only way to go to prom was to have his reverend dad drive him, and that he wanted to save face and drive he and his girlfriend in his own car. Bob had removed something from Jeff's car to ensure that he couldn't drive that night, and he was seen fixing his car at the gas station soon after leaving his house. He was late picking up his girlfriend, who said she was surprised he could go, though Jeff told people that his dad had changed his mind, allowing him to attend prom and the weekend activities. He didn't have much of a relationship with his stepmom. He'd been arguing with his dad, the house was locked, there was no sign of a break-in, and the only item missing from the house was a shotgun. According to the prosecution's timeline, Jeff had from about 4:45 to 5:30 p.m., when the friend of Bob and Dawn stopped by, to commit murder and clean up. 45 minutes. The defense's case was that it was far-fetched and impossible. According to their timeline, the 4 family members were killed between 4:55 and 5:15 p.m., a 20-minute window. A South Bend Tribune article said, "In that time, the prosecution maintains Pelly confronted and killed the victims, picked up and disposed of the spent shells and shotgun, took a shower, put his clothes in the washer, and left with his white tuxedo to go to the prom." One of Jeff's attorneys said, "From all indications, the people that were with Jeff that night described him as just one of the group. They were having a good time. To think that he could spend that whole evening doing all the things they did and just having fun like a kid after murdering his family is preposterous." Furthermore, a woman had been interviewed in 2003 who said that Bob was scared of being murdered due to past shady financial dealings, but that potential lead seems to have gone nowhere. It took 2.5 days for Jeff Pelly to be found guilty of the 4 murders. Sentenced to 160 years in prison, 40 years for each life. The conviction was reversed by the Indiana Court of Appeals, but was upheld again by the Indiana Supreme Court. The prosecutor said,
It was pretty obvious Jeff was the only one who could have done it, and we proved that to the jury with the time frame, and they believed it.
One of the jurors told 2020, "What stood out for me was a picture of Reverend Bob Pelly, a photograph of his body laying in the house. The manner in which it was laying led me to believe that the shooter came out of Jeff's bedroom." Jeff and his attorneys maintain his innocence. One of their main points is that the prosecution led jurors to believe that Jeff's clothes had been washed in the washing machine, when in fact they had just been placed in it. There was no blood on those clothes. Others who maintain his innocence also point out that he had no bruising on his thin frame from using the shotgun multiple times. Jeff's biological sister, Jackie, is certain of his innocence. But Jessica, the only surviving stepsister, said that Jeff bullied her as a child and that she believes that he did, in fact, kill her family.